Hi ladies, thanks for tuning in to the feedback screencasting. When we refer to feedback, we are talking about the information you receive regarding how successful your skill performance was. This short screencasting will explain the different types of feedback available to an athlete and provide you with some detailed information explaining each type. Please take down notes as you are watching the screencasting and any questions you have regarding the content. We will discuss these in class next lesson and apply your learnings from the clip. Okay, so firstly, what is feedback? As mentioned, feedback is the information you receive regarding how successful your skill performance was. Feedback can be provided or classified in 6 key ways, these being internal, external, concurrent, delayed, knowledge of performance, and knowledge of results. We will examine each of these types of feedback in detail throughout the course of this screencasting. In order to understand the importance of feedback, we need to understand the relationship between feedback and performance. For example, if the action or skill is highly unsuccessful, then feedback should suggest that the learner substitute or replace the action. If the action is unsuccessful, then feedback should suggest that the learner modify the action. If, however, the action is successful, then feedback should suggest that the learner repeat the same action. Have a look at this diagram. What do you think it suggests about the feedback process? This diagram represents the feedback cycle. An athlete will perform or input the skill. Feedback will then be provided, and the athlete will perform the skill again in light of this feedback, with the intention of improving results. If feedback is successfully provided, the ability of the athlete to correctly perform the skill should increase each time it is input or performed. Let's now discuss each of the different types of feedback. Internal feedback is that is intrinsic or felt or experienced from within. Messages are received through the body's proprioceptive mechanisms or senses. This is made possible through the neuromuscular system sending messages to the brain about how movement is being performed. For example, when passing a basketball, the athlete is aware of his or her own legs, shoulders, arms, and fingers moving through the air. The athlete is aware of the ball leaving the fingers and can see and hear it being caught by a partner. The athlete thus perceives this information about the performance without the use of equipment, devices, or other people. Therefore, internal feedback includes sensations such as sight, smells, touch, and sound that are related to the performance. Have a look at the diagram on this slide. Can you identify the internal feedback process? Skill A is performed. At B, through feelings and senses, the athlete receives cues about how the skill was performed. At C, the athlete perceives this information, processes it, and uses it to determine whether performance was positive or negative. Finally, at D, this internal feedback can be used to inform performance. Okay, moving on to external feedback. External feedback is derived from outside sources such as coaches, teammates, or even a crowd's applause. External feedback is particularly important in the early stages of skill acquisition because at this stage of learning, we really don't know what feels right. Can you identify the sources of external feedback in this picture? 3 main sources are identified, these being the coach, the timer, and the crowd. Moving on to concurrent feedback. Concurrent feedback is feedback received during the performance. It occurs simultaneously or continuously with skill execution. It is relayed throughout the body by the proprioceptive mechanisms, or the senses. Some examples of concurrent feedback include balancing in a handstand. The brain sends information to the athlete that enables them to maintain balance. Another example may be the feel of a ball as it hits a table tennis bat, or the sight of the goalkeeper moving to the left before a penalty stroke. The athlete can respond to this concurrent feedback at the same time the skill is being performed. Delayed feedback is feedback that is received post-performance. There is a gap between the execution of the skill and the athlete receiving feedback. Some examples of delayed feedback include waiting for the results of a basketball throw. The feedback is not received until the ball either enters or misses the basket. Another example would be a player jumping to head the ball in a soccer game. The player cannot change their body position in the air when the ball is 1 meter away from their head. In this case, the correctness of the action is gauged after the ball has been headed. The feedback might be a goal or a comment from the coach. The final two types of feedback we are going to discuss are knowledge of performance and knowledge of results. Knowledge of results refers to how successfully the skill was performed in terms of the results. For example, the distance covered in long jump, how many goals were scored in a netball game, or a score received for a gymnastics routine. Knowledge of performance is feedback that gives greater information regarding technique. The feedback is specific to the way in which the skill was performed. For example, a coach instructing a soccer player that they need to follow through after kicking to ensure a more accurate kick. If we look at some more examples of knowledge of performance feedback, we can see that it does not inform the athlete about the movement's success, like knowledge of results does, but rather it informs them about the performance of the movement pattern itself, or how it looked. For example, a gymnastic coach informing the gymnast that she had good body shape and height during a movement, or that her feet came apart directly relate to the actual movement. It is sometimes easy to get confused between knowledge of results and knowledge of performance. To cement the difference, look at this basketball example. We can see that knowledge of results comes from the athlete watching a ball go through the basket in a game of basketball, whereas knowledge of performance would be the coach telling the athlete that their arm was not fully extended at the time of the basketball shot. To conclude, it is important to understand that feedback is essential if performance is to be improved. It works best if it is immediate and positive, and if it reinforces correct skill execution. I hope you now have a detailed set of notes on feedback. We look forward to applying this content with you next lesson.